welcome to Business Today Television. I'm Siddharth Zarabi and you're watching our show focusing on virtual money. And with me today, a stellar panel to talk about the roller coaster world of cryptocurrencies. To my extreme right, we are starting with Sumit Gupta, the co-founder and CEO of CoinDCX. That's a very familiar name that you must have been seeing in the recent past. After him, Ashish Singhal. He's the co-founder and CEO of CoinSwitch Kuber. To my immediate left, Kunal Nandwani, co-founder and CEO of Utrade Technologies. And finally, Sanjay Mehta, the founder and partner of 100X VC. Thank you very much for being on the show today with us. The world of cryptocurrencies is an unfamiliar world to many people, especially those who are not tech geeks and those who live in the paper world or are barely digital. And Sumit, I want to start the show with you and try and break it up for people. We had Rakesh Junjunwala say that he doesn't really in some ways understand this world. A lot of people do understand it, and I've noticed that a lot of young people get it more than a certain age profile. So, Sumit, is this confirmation bias? If I were to ask you about the feeling that it's a roller coaster world and there's just too much that the ordinary investing folk can see in this, is that the right categorization to start?
Sure, that's a very, very good point to cover. And yes, it's a roller coaster journey. I have personally been through that during my early days. Even I was skeptical at first, and then later on when I started reading about it, it sort of cleared all the doubts. So yes.
What was the moment of change?
The moment of change. So when
was there one pivotal moment?
Yes. So I think it was a lot of discussion, brainstorming, very sleepless nights, 7-8 hours of discussion every day with colleagues who have learnt about it, whereas I was a newbie trying to decode the mystic world of crypto. And when I started reading about it, I think that just changed the perspective of how money functions. And I think it's a journey I've gone through that. I think the way to solve that is by education. And if you look at the bell curve, right, there has been always like a small 13% of early adopters who drive the change.
So who all need to be educated? I started with a consumer-facing point, but would you agree if I were to argue that perhaps the education needs to start with the regulatory framework, the decision makers, and then the adopting public? Am I right in that?
I think technology often moves faster than the law. So
yes.
First, there
it's
are
always
small
playing catch up.
Yeah, so you have to first read about it. There's a inflection point, and then regulators will start catching up with it. Then we will have a regulatory framework, and you'll see a mass adoption.
Before I move on to other colleagues, one quick point: what should someone who is watching this show, what should he start reading? One quick recommendation, a book, a blog, a site. What should one do to gain knowledge?
I would, in a practical world, I would say start reading with the white paper of Bitcoin, but a lot of people have found it too complicated, too challenging. Then start with YouTube. YouTube University has a lot of content to talk about.
Thank God he didn't say WhatsApp University.
YouTube has a lot of content that you can watch and start getting into the world of crypto.
Wonderful. Ashish, since he mentioned Bitcoin, I remember doing a show in an earlier avatar, and we called the show Bitcoin or Bittercoin. I think you get the point of the show. It was more of a legal show. That entire panel were legal experts, Indian experts about the policy framework. But the point I'm asking you, that was perhaps 3.5 years back. I still get the sense that the regulatory framework has still not sort of evolved. Am I wrong? Do tell us and our viewers.
Sure. No, that's absolutely right. And, we live in a world which is internet first. So users are catching on faster than the regulators, which is how every new technology evolves. We do believe that users are still ahead. Innovators are ahead building new products and, providing services to the users. And regulators would definitely catch up. As more education comes into the market, it is not just for the users, but for the regulators as well to learn the good and regulate the bad.
Would I be fair in asking a question that does it take regulators, financial sector regulators who are, experts by any stretch of the imagination, almost 3 years plus and counting in the Indian context?
No, definitely, right? So even the industry is evolving, right? So we have to look at from that perspective that regulators are learning, unlearning and relearning, right, along the way. And we as innovators have a very big role to play in that, in defining what are the key aspects of crypto, which would redefine the way companies are built in the future. And regulator has to teach us, what are the laws of the land which needs to evolve, which we need to adhere to create an economy which works for users, innovators, and the governments alike.
Okay. Kunal, in terms of the regulatory framework, if we were to go by what we started asking at the beginning, which is, what should India do? And that's still, I guess, work in progress. He spoke. Where do we stand today?
So I think when we say what should India do, India is a massive place. There are a number of regulators involved. Look at SEBI, RBI, Finance Ministry.
And I may interrupt you here.
Yes,
when
please.
you say massive, you are of course correct about the geography, the number of people. But I always had the sense that when it came to regulating the financial markets, we run a pretty tight ship.
Correct.
My point is, why would it take so many years to evolve a fairly basic level of legal framework? Because today, if you ask the average person, and I'm deliberately saying, they ask you questions like, is it legal? Is it like a chit fund scam? Is it like those tree growing companies? People ask all sorts of questions. You must have faced it. Please go ahead now.
Correct. So even if we were to define the cryptos into a financial asset, a commodity, or a currency, or a payment tool, or a community coin, or whatever, still the regulation, it falls through the regulatory cracks and understanding of the Indian system. In Indian system, cryptocurrency has to be recognized in the constitution first. That's a missing bit. For them, a fiat currency exists, a government-backed, gold-backed coin exists. That's understood, Indian rupee, US dollar. For them to regulate anything, they have to first change the constitution, define it there. Then they have to follow the rules and laws as they might say. It's a commodity, will regulate it like a commodity, it will fall under SEBI. Or if it's a payment coin, then it will fall under RBI. Or if there is something else, then it would be something else. So whatever. So it's not easy for the Indian system across these three regulators or authorities to even accept it. And right now, if we were just to even follow the media, they're not looking eye to eye. RBI governor at some point said recently that, we still believe it should not be allowed. Finance minister, on the other hand, said we are trying to pass a regulation which should allow this. Now, where would it go? Time would tell, right? But we are all bullish and cautious.
Are you able to tell our viewers just offhand about how many countries, at least comparable economies, have a proper regulatory framework, and are there any outliers who still haven't made up their mind really?
Sure. So I'll talk facts here. Countries like UK adopted it a few years ago, and they said their approach was very good. I loved it. They said it's too small to worry about. Let it grow, let people adopt, and we'll regulate it in the future. But we'll allow it for now with a close eye on it. That was probably the most practical approach I saw.
Attitude of forbearance.
Exactly. So that was a UK FCA who had come up with this. US allowed it, but then they said all the laws, all the prevalent laws would apply. So you can't do like narcotics laws and other things. All those things would apply. But for any legal purposes, you can try, and you can go to US SEC, which is the equivalent of Indian SEBI, and you can ask for permission.
What about China?
China has actually recently banned it.
Yeah.
China has banned it.
That's why I asked you why. What did they do? Because I think it started earlier. What do you think is the reason that they took that extreme step, I would say?
So point is this, we need to understand that virtual money is somehow stepping on the toes, that rightly or wrongly, in the eyes of the government. The government has power of taxation. They want to control the fiscal deficit. They want to know where the money is coming, where it's going. It's an emerging country. There are lots of rules and laws around Indian rupee, for FEMA, etc., which are so stringent. Now, if you allow a currency that they don't understand, don't regulate, don't validate, don't tax, or don't follow the trail or anything and everything, they would be uncomfortable. That's one of the reasons why some countries have not been bullish on this. But China is an outlier because they have even said that edtech is bad. They've actually gone after lots of other businesses and startups.
I think they've had they're probably undergoing. They had a cultural revolution. I think they're undergoing their own version of a technology revolution, which is more guided by ideology. Sanjay, I want to come to you, and I know you might want to add to what they have said, but I'll pose my question and you can take it from there. Your call. Explain to our viewers that a country like India, which has done a fantastic thing called BHIM, UPI, which is now being looked at by other countries. Look at the ease of transaction when you use any payment option today online. there was a sort of forced switch over post demonetization, but just talk about the technology. I think we are really advanced. People from the States tell me, wow, you guys can do this. You guys can do this. It's a bit of a surprise for many Americans.
Sure.
So why then would a country that has managed to do all of these things still be probably 50-50 about crypto regulation? I thought it was the easiest legislation for our babus to write. They are very good at this. Why aren't we getting this done?
First and foremost, I think start looking at Bitcoin as asset, not as a currency. First and foremost, it's an asset, right? It's a store value.
So you're saying this is what the government and the regulators also need to consider, apart from us?
Everybody.
The
idea here is
great point.
It's a store value.
Sanjay is saying it's an asset. And don't look at it like a currency, which is a medium of transaction, an instrument for transaction. Assets are something that you hold. Hopefully your assets are more than your liabilities.
Right. So it's a store value, like how gold would be, right? Why do we? It's a metal. Gold
but
is a metal.
But my gold doesn't fluctuate or drop 30% overnight.
No, that's a different function of volatility. Where I'm coming across is,
gold crazy Indians dealing with so much volatility, it's going to give sleepless nights to the entire family, joint families included, Sanjay.
No, I'm with you. Yeah. This asset class is very nascent, right?
Okay.
So you have to give that maturity time. Gold has been for decades and centuries, which has been a medium of transaction.
And a store of value.
Store of value and look at.
So Bitcoin, is it, okay, sorry, I'm trying to make it simple, so sure. Not to sort of interject too often. Tell me, is Bitcoin a store of value like 10% of gold, 50% of gold, or just 1%? Because people would do these mental comparisons.
So the way to look upon is why people value gold. It's a metal. It can be iron also, but we are not. Iron is also metal, gold is also metal.
And it's pretty illiquid as an investment.
Right. So idea here is because all of us cumulatively believe that gold has this value and there is always a supply-demand story, and this is what is happening with Bitcoin.
And although the currency peg went many decades ago.
Right. And today Bitcoin again has limited value because you can't mine more than 21 million.
Good point.
Right? Very similar to like gold reserves.
There's a scarcity premium.
Yeah, scarcity. Here it is easy for me to divide Bitcoin by 8. Right? My Satoshi, the smallest decimal is by 8.
Yeah.
Right? Fractionally. So, and it is digital. I can, let's say I want to have 1 kilo of gold, I will be scared to move around. But I can use the Bitcoin on my phone and...
As long as I don't forget my password, right?
Absolutely.
to the electronic wallet.
Right. So the way to look upon this is an asset. As an investor, I'm an investor. I purely invest into various asset classes.
So out of 5, this is another
This is one more asset.
Sumit, let's take that point forward because if you want to add to what he has said, feel free. But if we are to take it as an asset, who are the Indians who should be looking at it as an asset? What is the profile? Because, in any, and we are not in the business of investment advisory, but in anything that you do, you also put out risk factors. From your point as one of the largest exchanges in this business, what do you say to people who are looking to buy any type of crypto asset now that Sanjay has made that very clear?
Sanjay mentioned a very, very beautiful point, the classification of crypto as currency versus asset. And I totally agree with this point that crypto is seen more as a store of value. That is how it has evolved in other countries as well. And that is the reason. In India, the distinction between currency and asset is still under discussion. That is what's taking most of the time. There is RBI thinking that, okay, crypto should not replace our payment system. It should not be a threat to the INR, which is very fair. Right? If you look at crypto from an asset perspective, it's very
Can I interrupt? Has crypto proven to be a threat to any sovereign backed fiat currency anywhere in the world?
No,
so
I
far?
think.
Then why should the RBI fear it?
That is the confusion which needs to be resolved, and that can only happen when industry players and regulators come on a common stage.
Because I'll tell you why I ask you this, Sumit. I've also covered economic crime as a reporter, and I don't believe this argument that by banning a medium of transaction, you will stop the crime.
Exactly.
People will find even barter to
Absolutely.
do crime. So I don't buy this that cryptocurrencies, because they are not in your hand and you can't touch and feel them, they will fuel more illicit transactions. Well, people
If
find
you
them.
ban it, it's gonna harm even more.
Yeah.
The better thing is to regulate it so that you can prevent bad actors from participating, and you can harness the potential of crypto for the economy's advantage. To add to that,
Are our regulators behind times? Because I've seen this happen in the past. Chit funds, there was confusion and there was political interference. In some other sectors also, it was almost like, yeah, don't please bring this problem to me. It's too new for me. Don't bring it. Push it, shove it under the carpet. Is that the attitude? I know I'm trying to put you on the spot, but give me an answer
that's
as
actually very
frank as
important
you.
to discuss,
Yeah.
because that's what's happening. Other countries are being very progressive when it comes to the adoption of blockchain technology and leverage of crypto, right, as part of their financial systems. India, I think, needs to be a step ahead, because India has all the right ingredients in place. It has a young, tech-savvy population who are like startup entrepreneurs, and right now you're sitting
Oh
looking
yeah,
at two
and
unicorns,
I
right?
must tell our viewers, I follow like probably 500 fintech, discussion streams and people and threads and on Twitter, and I see an Indian almost everywhere, which is amazing. Let's at the end of the conversation talk about the people factor. Is it because Indians are inherently jugadu? They understand money, paisa samajhte hain, isliye? Is that why we are so up there in the fintech revolution?
There is so much innovation happening in fintech. If you look at the first half of 2021, more than $2 billion came in investments. And if you look at the numbers, roughly 20% of that came in crypto, in spite of the fact that crypto is not yet regulated.
So while we failed to create a TikTok in the video space, do you think we can create a TikTok equivalent in the crypto space?
There would be. There are a lot
Who would
of,
that be? Would it be you? Would
no,
it be you?
We are just a platform, but I mean, there are a lot of possibilities, a lot of use cases that you can come up with. And India has all this like developer base, right? All these founders. If you just leverage crypto to its advantage, I think in the next 10 years, India can be the global leader in the cryptoverse, right?
Provided regulation supports it. Yeah? Well, add to the point about regulation. Add to the point of regulation. What would you like to see? What should the preamble of a regulation show? Should there even be a law? Should it just be forbearance that people are investing? If they lose money, they lose money on the stock market. They lose money in debt, in real estate. So why not let that be the case?
No, that cannot be the case, because as regulators, you have to protect user interest. That is the absolute need of the hour. You need to make sure that users feel protected at any point, because they're investing their hard-earned money, right? Today, 6 million of our users are coming from tier 2 and tier 3 cities, right? So the entire India is investing into cryptocurrencies, right? It's not just the elite or the tier.
When you say entire India, that's a great statement, but break it down. When you say entire, what do you have numbers on population as a percentage? What's the number?
So number as population, I'll give you a very simple example. Zerodha has 7 million registered users. Today we have 11 million. So we are bigger than Zerodha in just 15 months of our operations.
And
biggest
in volume terms?
We have over $2 billion of assets invested by these people onto our platform. We are today India's biggest crypto platform.
And what is the median kind of profile of the guy?
So the median profile is, coming from tier 2, tier 3, young generation, average age is about 25. They are the internet first generation who are learning this technology. They're not behind 7 years like we used to be from US in any fintech revolution. So we are along with them.
So sorry, is this extreme risk? Is that the profile? Those who are like young people, they want to, take the most biggest risk for the biggest reward probably.
So frankly, in the last year or so, markets have only gone one way in every asset class almost, right? You look at equities, you look at real estate, you look at cryptos.
And history teaches us that it's not a one-way street. At some point it will...
So, and the primary reason behind, besides COVID accelerating digital adoption, besides US printing $10 trillion, which is probably the biggest liquidity infusion in the history ever. For decades, we've not seen that, right?
Yep.
So that gives opportunity to people, as long as they are in the worst case willing to lose a bit or whatever it takes. It's fine, but it's a risk. It's like any other asset. It's risky. It's volatile. It has gone up and down. It was in March. It was like
compare the reward. He compared the sort of numbers of people investing. Compare the reward.
Look, in stock markets, if you have to get equivalent returns, which is like 3 to 5x in 6 months, You have to go really small cap. You really have to know that promoter is not shady. You really have to know that they are genuinely building something great and the market is adopting and business is growing, which doesn't easily happen. It's just virtually impossible to identify such companies if you were to compare with stocks. Mutual funds, you'll never get that. So frankly, it could be once in a lifetime opportunity that this happens like this. It may not always, it won't go 10x easily necessarily in the next 2 years, the growth it has seen in the last year or so. But who knows? Look, we are not here to predict the future, but it's risky. But it's definitely been rewarding so far. But as long as you keep holding on to it and you don't know when to exit, you might still lose out again, right? So need to be careful. With like any other profile, your risk reward profile should be in your head.
Absolutely. Sanjay, we are coming to the end of our session, and the last question goes to you, Sanjay. A lot of the times we see investing, there are people who say, please do systematic investing, look at the fundamentals, preferably don't trade, stay invested for the long run. These are all, stock market jargon. In the crypto world, if I were to ask you for a similar set of, 1, 2, 3 things to do when it comes to investing in crypto of any sort, what would you tell the profile of people, young India, Bharat, middle India, whatever term you use, who is investing, and it's their call, but still what would you tell them, how to navigate the Brahmaputra, if I may say that?
Sure. So I would say across, I'm an investor, so basically the way I look upon is risk is 1x, upside is unlimited. If I have to give just one mantra, risk is 1x of your capital.
Can I counter that by saying, are you fueling greed?
Investors are born with greed. If you are an investor, you want returns.
So crypto
you are not
is not
doing
for
charity.
savers.
You are
So
not doing
crypto is
charity.
not for savers or those who want a pension income.
The idea is investments are always for
Go ahead,
returns.
Okay, we are in the last minute, so please jump in.
It's not exactly that we are asking people to put entire money. What we are saying is it needs to be part of your portfolio. What percentage it could be, it depends on your risk profile.
So,
Just to add to that, I think crypto is globally seen more of a portfolio diversification tool. Just to give one example, as Sanjay mentioned, 1x downside. I would say it's because it's an early stage, it's more risky. But as markets mature, the risk will go down over time. Just a 5% allocation in crypto is giving you a 40% upside in your overall P&L. And just imagine a 10% compounded return versus a 12% makes hell lot of a difference in the next 10, 20 years, right? As an investor. So I think that is what crypto is a tool for better portfolio diversification. Do not put all your eggs in one basket. There's a simple rule, right? I think you should look more as crypto as a emerging asset class, not like you've put in all your capital just because it has gone up 10x. It's not practical. Getting consistent 10x returns over years is not practical. Sometime you'll go down, right? So it's important to diversify practically.
It's new. It's a bit of a strange world. There's a lot of technology involved in it. There's lots of jargon. But at the bottom line is diversification of your asset class. If you wish to do that, and like the panel said, if you want unlimited returns and you are a risk taker, you have that capacity, and one of the panelists told us that a lot of people all across the country are doing it, do it. Make sure that your experience isn't bitter. And I want to end by saying, let's get the legal regulatory framework in place so that whatever is done, all of this innovation, the technology, the fintech bit that is happening, happens under a proper framework. I'm going to thank my entire panel for their wonderful views. Thank you very much for your time. And you, the viewer, if you've been, thank you very much for watching. With that, it's a wrap on this show.